Welcome to Brunese
And Marissa's.
True Crime Podcast. Today we have a very local, it's a local subject. It's crazy. It's called the Dixie Mafia. I seriously did not even know we had one. But anyway, it's a very interesting story. But today we have a special guest. This person would like to remain anonymous, and I can understand why. So, I welcome this person.
Well, I would like to say thank you for letting me be on here. Um, you're talking about the Dixie Mafia as well, you two. And, the problem, and I'm sure that both of you have had this, it's where's the material, right? Well, as Mafia goes, it's a land of secrets, very much like Mississippi. Have you ever heard the term Mississippi is the land of secrets?
Yes.
There you go. That's Dixie Mafia. They took that motto and kept it that way. We are the land of secrets, and that's just the way the old regime was.
Okay.
Everyone understands the Italian mafia and, La Costa Nostra.
Yeah, La Cosa Nostra.
Nostra, I'm sorry. What is the difference between that and the Dixie Mafia?
Well, okay, so La Cosa Nostra is basically the Italians. And with the Italians, that's the only way you got in. You had to show your Italian heritage. That's the only way you got in the mob with them, the La Cosa Nostra. Now, they were New York, or as the old regime would say, they were Yankees. And now, the difference between La Cosa Nostra, Italian crime, and Dixie Mafia is basically this. We were more family. In a sense, we were small town with southern charms, if that makes more sense. Now, we knew how to blend in with society. For example, you and Marissa could go to the local grocery store and you would have no clue if you just asked somebody, said, "Hey, where's the pineapples or is that, or where's the beef jerky?" That you would know. You wouldn't know if you was talking to a member of the Dixie Mafia or if you was talking to a preacher. That's how well they blended in, but they were polite. They were kind, actually. Well, I don't mean to make them out to be Robin Hoods, but
Did the Dixie Mafia rule in fear?
No, they did not. They knew where they had to get along with the community. For example, the small little town I grew up in, Escatawba, Mississippi, there was no police force, but we did have a police force. It was the Dixie Mafia, and everybody in town knew, but didn't say anything about it because guess what? If somebody was breaking into your home or somebody was coming there and harmed one of your kids, and what are you going to do? Call the cops next door, or are you going to call the guy that lives down the house, a couple of houses down, that's part of the Dixie Mafia? Well, yeah, you're going to call your neighbor that's on down the road because it's going to get taken care of, and you ain't got to worry about it. That's what they did, and they knew fear was not the way because one, if people feared you, just had a distinct fear, they knew you would get snitched out.
Explain to me and all the listeners and viewers how the Dixie Mafia structured worked.
Okay, so the structure of the Dixie Mafia, it was similar to the Italian Mafia. But there was a boss, right? There was the boss. Now, under the boss, there was, I guess what you could say, his best friend. The one that where the boss went, he went. That was the guy that not like chauffeured him around or something, no, but he was his running buddy. But in the organization, they knew if the boss got thrown in jail, guess what? His best friend's going to pick up the slack till he gets out. So they knew. And so there was that, like a president and then a vice president, showing it to like government thing. And then there was under the vice president, there was, I guess you would say, soldiers, where people that said, we are the Dixie Mafia. This is what we are. And there wasn't a lot, but there was enough to get the jobs done, whatever that may be. Now under those guys, there was associates. So there was the people that they would want to bring in eventually, or they were just had some scam going, or some kind of thing like that. And that's just how the structure of it was. So it was kind of like if somebody wanted to go to war with the Dixie Mafia, right? It's not just one person, it's a trickle of it. Yeah, so that's basically the structuring of the Dixie Mafia. But now, as well, I do want to say this. The reason they got away with it so long, they operated in cells. Now, what I mean by cells is, okay, for like the state of Mississippi, every state in America has a county. Every county, basically, or almost every county, had a Dixie Mafia. And they operated on their own, but they kind of kept in touch. They would call each other on the landline and say, one of our people is in trouble. Can you hide them out? Can we come stay with you? It was things of like, or if somebody was going to be assassinated or murdered. Well, you don't want to do it sometimes in the house, so they would call the ones that were good at things like that. And they would call them up and say, we got a problem. Can you send somebody, one of your people, to over here to us? And that's basically the structure. And that's why the federal government had such a hard time trying to figure out how can we throw these people in jail.
Why do you think the Dixie Mafia murdered the mayor in Biloxi, or the mayor candidate in Biloxi?
Oh, well, okay. So back in the 90s, there was a mayor candidate. I can't remember her name, but she was running for mayor. Yeah. Now, at that time, the casinos it had to be passed through law that they could come there and bring the casinos on the water. Mm-hmm. Now, this mayor candidate, she just said no because one, she thought prostitution was going to follow. She thought illegal gambling was going to happen. She thought all these horrible things would happen if the casinos came in. And she was aware of the Dixie Mafia in Harrison County. It's two different ones that, now the Harrison County Dixie Mafia, they were sociopaths. They were just murderers and crazy. I mean, they were. People just, it's kind of like having that crazy uncle, and you're like, that's our crazy uncle. Don't mess with him. Just leave him alone. That's the way. Yeah, right. So that's the way the Harrison County Dixie Mafia was, right? They were money makers, but you just knew they were the killers. But so she was winning as mayor. Well, the Dixie Mafia in Harrison County, they said, well, how do we get rid of this problem? Murder. And two members of the Dixie Mafia went up to her and her husband's house one night, knocked on the door, went in there, and put bullets in their heads, and walked out. And then guess what? You can go there right now, Biloxi, Mississippi, and look at the casinos. And people who are local, who know it, I will say this. This is why they say the casinos was built on blood money.
Yeah.
Because it was.
Is there any stories that you would like to tell me and Marissa that no one else has heard or has heard about the Dixie Mafia?
Ooh, well, there's a lot, and I'll tell a story where I didn't witness all of it, but I witnessed the latter half, the last bit of it, where one day, and this was in the late 80s, I believe. So this was a time where there was no internet. The only way you had communication was go telephone, the landline, and you didn't even know who was calling. It was, you just had to take a guess, pick it up, and it was during that time period. Now, this young lady, she was probably 16, 15 years old. She went out on a date with an older man, right? And she got raped. I don't know any other nice way to put it. She got raped. The guy dropped her off, in front of her house, and she went inside, and she was upset, and she saw her mom and dad, and they finally got it out of her, and she explained what happened. So, what they did, they called the boss of the Dixie Mafia and the Moss Point Police Department. They came over there, right? The cops wrote the report, this and that, and they said, we'll take care of it. And then the cops knew that the boss was there. So, the cops just kind of did their thing. They left. And the boss was there, and he came up to that young lady, and he grabbed her by her hand and said, listen, I've listened to everything you told the cops, and I want you to know, don't worry, this will be taken care of by us. And she cried, she said, please don't kill him, don't kill him. And he looked at her and said, I promise you, I'm not going to kill him. I promise, I will not kill him. Well, a couple of days went by, and the boss and his best friend came by the house, knocked on the door. The parents answered the door, and the boss looked at him and said, well, I'm just here to tell you, that guy that did that, he's never coming back because he packed his bags and went to Texas. Now, what that means is, yeah, he went to Texas, but he traveled there by eating alligators that ate him. Yeah. I mean, that's honest. That's just straight up. I can't say that really happened, but it's just when you're around it and you know these people, and even the parents knew, but yeah. And so that's how, like, they didn't rule in fear. They would put it to you in a way, you can believe what I'm saying, but I'm going to put it to you in such a way,
Who were the key players in the Dixie Mafia era?
Well, I don't want to name names, okay, because there's, but what I will name a name. And this guy was a major key player. Back probably in the late 80s kind of thing, and maybe early 90s, but the mayor of Biloxi, he was a key player. He really was. And the sheriff of Biloxi, his last name was Hobbs. But they, God, it's like they would say, we've paid more police and politicians so much that we could send half of the county's kids to college, for so they were just throwing out the money to them left and right. But if it wasn't for these crooked politicians and the crooked cops and stuff like that, Dixie Mafia, honestly, they would have been there, but not nearly as money rich or as powerful.
Is the Dixie Mafia still around today? I mean, because it's 2024, and so, I mean, and if so, what is your thoughts compared to what it is now than what it was then?
Night and day. Completely night and day. The old regime, the one that I knew when I was growing up and teenager and that kind of thing, they had a rule. And the rule, well, they had bunches of rules actually, but rule was don't snitch, don't tell the cops, you don't speak to the cops, nothing. You keep quiet. And now today, the modern Dixie Mafia, I like to think of them as basically street thugs, street guys that they'll rat you out in a heartbeat just to save their own hide. There's no class to what they do. It's like they're the people, they'll sell whatever. They don't give a crap about you. They don't care that somebody's child just got hurt. They're like, ain't our problem. We're going off selling drugs. You know what I mean? That's just kind of the difference. Back then, the old regime, we cared, and they cared about people. Now it's more just street thugs.
What kind of scams did they run in the prison, and how did they get away with it?
This could probably only happen back in the day. So one of the bosses, I don't remember which one, but him and about 2 or 3 other Dixie Mafia members were in jail. And I believe they were in Louisiana jail, I think. But they, oh my God, we had a scam where they were writing letters, right, to gay men. And they would look in the classified ads, and they would, it's horrible, but it's funny, because we would all laugh about it. When we heard it, we would literally laugh of like, this is the craziest scam. But they would write these gay men and tell them some wild story about, I need money for my lawyer, I'm suffering, or I'm dying. They would literally say all this craziness. And they would get these people, these gay guys, to send them money orders, and this and that, and wire money up. And they made millions of dollars off of this. Millions. And then, it's awful, but like, then after a couple of them started the I guess what you would say, victims, the victims of them, then they started blackmailing them because the people that were writing them, they were politicians and people of them. They were very important folks. Well, like the Dixie Mafia always said, once we got a good scam going, we ain't gonna let go of it. They started blackmailing them, and they was like, "Look, I know who you are. We've got evidence. You want us to go public, stating to your public that you're running as a Christian guy, but and all this high and mighty and straight and narrow, and then here you are, and you're admittedly open that you're homosexual." What do you think a politician's going to do? Just send them money left?
Well, there was one poor guy I know I read about in Kansas. He mortgaged off his house and sent him like $30,000 in a few months. I'm like, really? Like that was his fault. I'm sorry that's your fault. That ain't mine. Why did they commit most of their crimes in areas that like strong, coordinated law enforcement, like small communities?
The reason they went there to small communities, basically, they knew if we stay to small town,
Yeah.
everybody gets to know us, or they are actually already live there. And so, if you live in a small town that doesn't have a police force, but you know you got one, just not legally, and you know that the people that are watching over you, essentially, and I don't mean to make them out to be Robin Hoods, but essentially, if you got something that's gonna help you and help watch after your family to where you know that your kids at 8:30 at night can go walk down the road.
Yeah.
I mean, who would say no to that? I mean, honestly, it's like, you want to go walk around the neighborhood at 8:30 at night, just be back at 9. That's the thing, it's the rule. And parents actually would use that to their effect to keep teenagers out of trouble. And it'll be like, hey, you want me to call so and so? No, no. So there was a lot of controlling teenagers that way through parents. Not like fear them, but when teenagers get wild sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why they chose small communities, because one, there was no cops.
Yeah.
Two, you had a building trust with the community.
I mean, I know they had rules too. I know I read one of them is do not snitch to the cops. They have any more than that? Because I know that's all I read was that one, but I know they had to add more.
Yeah.
So what was the rules to be in that mafia?
There was some rules. One, of course, like you just said, don't don't snitch, don't talk to the cops. That's a no-no. You go swim with the fishes quick. But like the other one was, no harm would ever come to any children. That was a rule. That's a rule. If they found out, the Dixie Mafia found out that it didn't matter if it was one of their members or somebody in the community, you hurt a child, believe me, you ended up in the hospital. You would have wished you would have died. They would have got beaten so bad. And and the other rule that I can remember distinctly was, what you earned, you take your cut and you give it to the boss. You give it to your boss, and your bosses are going to give it to their boss.
Yeah.
It's like a pyramid,
Yeah.
if you will. So if, for example, I earned $2,000, I could pocket about 400 of it and give it to my, the guy, a guy I'm close to, and say, "Look, I made a good score." And he would be like, and of course he's going to take 600. But by the time it gets to the boss, the boss is just sitting there and he's like, "Hey, I got $1,000, and he's not going to ask where it come from. He's just going to take it and put it right there." And
I know that a minute ago, we were talking about how they're still around today, but some of the articles actually refer to them as a past tense. Why do they do that? I mean, why is that?
the reason they refer to it as past tense, because it was the golden era. It was a time where they didn't do stupid. I mean, they did stupid things, and they did illegal crimes. I don't make them wanted to be some, holier than thou. They were gangsters, but there was a line of respect, and nowadays they don't have that really, at all. But it's just now. But that's why they say the Dixie Mafia, because essentially, as well, the FBI, after the mayor candidate got murdered and her husband, the FBI came in and they was like, you know what? You just opened up Pandora's box. We're going to shut you all down. Yeah. And they cleaned house. And really, ever since that, it was pretty much done.
Yeah. I mean, I know I read that some night. Back then, Biloxi with the mafia thing was just about like Vegas. You know, they were like the first Vegas. You know, they were Vegas before Vegas was Vegas. The Sin City. Okay, so if you had any advice to anyone out there that is, you know, thinking about joining like a street gang or an organized crime organization, you know, like as the Italian mafia, you know, or the Dixie Mafia or any mafia, because there's a lot of mafias. What advice would you have for them, like if they were to go to do it or they wanted to do it?
My advice is don't do it. You have a choice. You really do have that choice whether to live. What I say, and I like to tell people, you can live in the dark or you can live in the light. You can do wrong or you can do right. And you know, and I want to quote Meyer Lansky, who is a famous Jewish mobster. He said, and it's an FBI recording, he said, you know, if I would have known now, if I would have known then what I know now, all I would have had to do is go get a business license, and I could have made so much more money by doing it right versus what I was doing.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Quick and easy money, quick and easy is not, it's going to get you. It's going to bite you. What you would say in the mafia terms, and I'm speaking as somebody who was almost there, okay? It's going to bite you in your ass.
Yeah.
And I would tell people and anybody, if you're thinking about doing it, don't. Because two things are going to happen in your life. You're either going to go to jail or you're going to end up in the morgue. And it's a bullet in your head type thing. And I think every life is precious. Every life is got potential and everything. And a gang, honestly, it's not worth it. It's not worth taking your life, having your life taken from you, because you have the potential of doing so much more and living a better and good life.
For the ones up north, you know, we did have a mafia down here in the south. You know, it's kind of like, you know, back in the day, you know, I remember Crips and Blood and stuff like that, you know, east side, west side, but never did I know that we had anything out here in the south. I mean, you know, because, you know, of course, going to school, we heard about people jumping people into things, you know, and all this stuff, and I'd be like, y'all are crazy, you know, like, I don't know what y'all talking about, you know, because that was me, because I grew up, you know, like, I was kind of blind there, you know, because when I went to school, you didn't hear about things like that, you know, and, I mean, and then, you know, I found out about the Dixie Mafia, and I'm like, oh, I got to look them up. I've got to, you know, read the story about this one, you know, because I was like, really? You know, but if anybody goes to Biloxi, you know, you don't have signs that say that the mafia was here. You know, you ain't gonna have nothing like that. I don't know, if you ask around, you might find something.
You would have to find somebody who's older
Yes.
and past 45-ish, and you would have to ask them, tell me what it was like back in the day.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't mind, I would like to tell how because like when people go to Biloxi now, right? They
Yeah.
see it and it's fun. Don't get me wrong. It's a fun time. You go there and see all the lights and the gambling and the drinks and the food. But back in the day, this is how you know. I felt honestly kind of lucky because these casinos were Dixie Mafia influenced.
Yeah.
All right. So one particular night, me and my best friend, we were at there and we was just gambling. Now we wasn't even 21 yet. We were 20. We were 20 years old gambling and drinking, drunk as a drunker and Cooter Brown, Jack. I mean, we were gone. But so the pit boss, now the pit boss of a card thing, for those of you who don't know, that's the guy who runs the tables, right? He's looking at all the card games. Here we are, 20 years old, drunk, and he says, he walked up to us and he's like, "Hey, y'all want a room?" I'm like, "Well, we ain't got no more money. We about broke." And he's like, "No, no, no. You want a room?" And he's like, "For free?" And he goes, "Sure, I don't care." And I was like, "Sure, we'll take a room." We were so broke we didn't even have a deposit money. I mean, yeah. And well, and he's like, "Y'all hungry?" He's like, "Yeah, we're hungry." He's like, "All right, go get you something to." He's like, "Go get you something to eat, and then I'm gonna write you a voucher for breakfast in the morning if y'all can still eat." And I was like, I mean, but that's just the way it was. Now you've got to spend $10,000 and you got to order room service and pray it comes by next Thursday.
Oh God, if you go up there to buy a pack of cigarettes, God help you, it's like $20 dang.
Right. And back then, though, that's just, they gave you that. They made you, like, not only was you safe, but you felt just that extra little something.
Yeah.
Even though they were ripping it off some way, but still, it's like, hey, there's the good and then there's the bad.
If they're around today, they'd probably, the old timers, they'd probably be like, because they do the scratch offs now they got the lottery. So they'd really be making in some money. They somehow figure out how to rig the lottery. I mean, because, hey, the lottery, the scratch offs, hey, I need to win on a scratch off. Actually, I did win on, like, we won, between me and my daughter, we won like $100-something on scratch offs. But then they couldn't cash it. It didn't make no sense, but I was like, okay, whatever. So we ended up buying more and losing that. So I'm like, oh, that's why they did that. Yeah, they kind of pulled that little thing on me. But they say because people use cards now. And so I'm like, well, you need to tell them to use cash. Because you got to start paying people. Yeah, you kind of think like with gas stations, they would have their own money for that, And I mean, I'm pretty sure if the Dixie Mafia was here today, everything about everything about that would be run by them, one way or another, And I mean, I really do commend the older group because I ain't gonna lie, that's pretty smart. They're pretty smart people for, because we do make fun of being out in the South, but they were really smart. And I mean, they didn't like do like the mafia and wear like these nice suits and sit out in front of a store, and show themselves like, around the table and do meetings like that. Instead they did it somewhere else where nobody knew who they was, and they could have been like, your taxi driver or, just different things like that. I mean, they were just ordinary people that just got together. And I mean, a lot of people would have thought like, man, the Dixie Mafia was like, certain other people down, that's down here in the South, but they're not. They wasn't that way. I mean, but honestly, like their story in general is interesting, and the scam that they did was very interesting, and I couldn't help but laugh about it. I mean, that's just smart. In the 80s and stuff, that was smart. 70s, 80s, or whatever, that was very smart. But I mean, it is sad though that nowadays you don't get that. You don't have the older mafia. Like you said, nowadays, they'll snitch on you in a heartbeat. They probably won't beat the women. They don't care. And that's sad because I don't know if there's any more Italian mafias left. I mean, I'm pretty sure there is, yeah. And they're still like the old timers up north. But down here in the South, they're just way different. I guess they're just built wrong. I don't know. They're just built weird. I really don't know. Raised weird. I don't know. I ain't cutting them down because, people get raised different. And it's not really the mama's fault a lot of times. It's not really the parents' fault. That's all for today with the Dixie Mafia. I'm hoping next time, next on our next show, it's going to be a very big show. I can't really say what it is yet. But, once it gets closer to it, then we'll make an announcement on what it is, and then you'll see why I'm so excited. But anyway, thank you for thank you for our guest.
And
For
let me tell you two lovely ladies the way Dixie Mafia would say thank you. Say, thank y'all so much for having me.
you're welcome, and thank you for coming and doing this interview. And everyone have a good night. And
Or slash day, or where depends where you are.
yeah, or slash day. Yeah, wherever you're from. We hope y'all enjoyed this one, and we look forward to doing it again next week. So, share, like the other podcast post. We have it, and just one big thing. But we'll see y'all later. Bye.